The Grassroots Bernie Sanders Campaign Center in Silver City, New Mexico opened on October 3rd last year, and it's been open from noon to 3 p.m. every day since. On Tuesday nights, we have potlucks and events such as tonight's conversation with the candidates, 3 people who are running for town mayor.
Maybe we'll get a call tomorrow.
Well, it's 2 minutes to 6, and I want us to be done by 6:30 so we can get to the next event. What I'm more interested in is the town's relationship with the businesses here. I think you could say that Bernie Sanders' central issue is that in an economy that has very, very rich, small percentage, the inequality that exists today hasn't been this extreme since 1928, which is right before a big crash and depression. Nothing is trickling down at this point. Now, you guys want to be, you people want to be mayor of a town of 10,300 people. And the Koch brothers are probably not sending you large checks. So what do Bernie's economics have to do with Silver City? I did a little research and found out something about our biggest industry, Freeport-McMoRan. And it is a giant. Corporations have to report the compensation for their 5 top executives. In 2014, that added up to $38,529,552. That's for 5 people. And that was down from the year before, which it was 91 million and change. Now this year they're in terrible shape, of course, but nobody got less than 3 million. And somebody got 55 million. Now what determines whether a company like that does something like close their local operations? Is it the welfare of the people here who are their employees and the landscapes that they're digging up, or is it their profit? Well, it's their profit. Of course it is. Here's a personal opinion and observation. It seemed to me that the town just goes berserk with gratitude when the big corporations give money to town projects. Our volunteer organizations or and might not want to combat or question the big organizations in the way that Bernie Sanders says we've just got to change the entire system. So do you see any such changes in the future? Are you happy with things as they are now? Or if you would like to see a more self-sufficient economy in our town, our area, do you have any ideas how we might go about that?
And who are you asking?
I'm asking each of you in order. And I'm going to go fiddle with the camera.
Should I introduce myself, or is that already a given? My name's Mark Donnell, and I'm an anesthesiologist at the hospital, retiring in April. I'm fairly familiar with Freeport-McMoRan, actually. Their stock has dropped by 60 to 65% over the last year and a half, as have all the commodities, because purchase of commodities around the world has fallen off, especially in China, India, other such places. I'm always somewhat upset when I have some Freeport-McMoRan stock. I get a ballot for the board of directors candidates. They tell me nothing about any of the candidates that are applying for the board of directors. They have a recommended list that they want you to vote for. I never send my ballot back in because I refuse to vote for somebody that I know nothing about. But this is the way corporations work. Their interest is in the good of the corporation and making money. And only secondarily, when they're doing well, are they going to be doling out money to communities and things like this. It's a major problem. It's something Bernie talks about. I don't have an immediate solution to that other than we all need to be aware of how these corporations function and do what we can from the bottom up to change that situation. Whenever a town is dependent on one particular or two industries, they are at risk for cyclic changes, just as we've seen in Silver City over the years. Fortunately, we have more businesses that have come into town since the last major downturn, and the city is not quite, or the town is not doing quite as poorly as a result. I don't want to monopolize the time, so I'm going to pass the mic to Ken.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Ken Ladner, and I'm also a mayor for candidate for mayor. I was thinking about this question of how do we counter the big industry and the kinds of effects they can have on us. And the thing that came to mind was an experience that I've had here in Silver City. When I first moved to Silver City in 1976, downtown was almost a ghost town. I don't know if you remember that or not. 30 to 40% of the businesses were closed. The new city manager took out all the parking meters to try and encourage people to come downtown. That didn't work too well because we still lost Penny's, Cosgrove's, and Bill Kobe's. Shortly after that, a program called the Main Street Project started in Silver City. And I know a lot about that project because I've been a member of the board now for over 20 years. How do we rebuild downtown? How do we get it to the point where small businesses want to come into the area? Well, we put new sidewalks on Broadway and Bullard. We put new street lights downtown. We did a lot of projects to enhance the beauty and the functionality of downtown. And over the years, through a lot of different other programs, including like low interest rates, loans from the banks so businesses could paint their facade and dress up their window display and things like that, we have brought downtown to the point where it now is literally the heartbeat of Silver City. There's a lot of stuff going on downtown, and the environment is such that it's friendly to small businesses. We now have something like 40 places where you can get food. We have about 50 retail stores. And then just recently, we have finished restoring the Silco Theater. And that's going to open next Friday, February 26th. And when you see the inside of that, you're going to agree that it's going to be one of the landmark businesses, small businesses in Silver City. Small business is the key to creating an economy that's buffered against some of the big ups and downs of the big corporates. There's like 25 million small businesses in our country. They produce over half of the employment of the whole country. If each small business, if one of three small businesses could add just one employee, that would take care of all the unemployment problems. And the other great thing about small businesses is the money stays here. The people who own it, the money stays in our community. So I'm a real big proponent of developing small business.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cynthia Bettison. I am currently the counselor for District 1 and the mayor pro tem of the town of Silver City. I've been on the council for 7 years. I'm the director of the University Museum, and I am a registered professional archaeologist, and that's what I do at the University Museum. So in answer to the question, which is, do I see any changes in the future of things that we need to do? I have been in tourism for 26 years. I come from a family where my father and my grandfather owned small businesses. And in many ways, the way we run the University Museum is a small business. We want to attract people not only to come to town, but to stay in town. And over the years of being on the council, we've done several things to try to promote small businesses. I think we haven't been as successful as we should be, because I think that the best thing that we can do for our local economy is to really kind of move us towards making sure that we're truly the business-friendly community that we think we are. Because right now, there's a few things that need to be updated and changed on the land use code, the way we work with small businesses. And so that's why one of the things that I want to do is I want to bring in and do a mayor's entrepreneurial task force that actually has small business people on it, town folks on it, small business development center folks that can help leverage monies, School of Business folks, the faculty there, because this is really a community thing. So that when you come in with an idea, whether you want to create a new one, maintain your current business, or you want to expand, you will have the opportunity to present your business plan, have people help you with that, especially the Small Business Development Center, and then we can look at options by which you can fund your business, or at least get some funding in that will help you make it successful. And one of the most important things is making sure that if we're going to do this downtown or anywhere in Silver City, that you have a checklist that is based on your business plan, where you can actually say, when I am done with this checklist, my business will be open. None of these, now you have to do this, now you have to do that. It has to be something where the town's facilitating that. So in all that we've done recently is, yes, we have the Main Street project, which is really going strong. The Silco Theater was recipient of Local Economic Development Act funds. The town council made sure that an ordinance went through. Recently, the Little Toad Creek, in order to expand their distillery and brewery, they were actually able to get Local Economic Development Act funds as well, using the town's ordinance that we had to update. And there's also a clawback provision. Many people don't realize that that's not free money. It's not truly a grant. You have to create new businesses within the new jobs within the time frame that you state. So I know that Councilor Eamon Smith and I are working together to make sure there's a series of workshops put on by the Small Business Development Center, and one will be coming up soon, on whether or not you qualify for a Local Economic Development Act funds. And that'll be coming up on March 15th. There'll be more about that. But I think other things that we have done to make sure that we bring in tourism, that we keep them here, is we've created, out of the Main Street program and the Economic Development Department, we have an Arts and Cultural District. The university is part of that. All of downtown's part of that. We've done the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area, which leverages monies like Colonias and community development block grants, where we can actually use that in a public-private partnership to enhance not only the business, but even people's residences, sidewalks, streets, and things like that. And some of those monies will be applied in the upcoming, in spring, when we actually do some of the sidewalks that are crumbling around here. So I think that what we have to do is we really have to move ourselves together as a collective unit so that we are looking at alternatives so that we can be sustainable in the future, and particularly in tourism and small businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got one more question, and I was glad to hear you mention those parking meters. One of Bernie Sanders' concern is what he calls the demilitarization of the police. and a closer look at prison and prison management as a business. And he says that the community's police should look like the community, and not like an invading army. Well, I was at one of our many coffee shops recently and listening to an old-timer who was telling me about the old days when he did community service with a beat cop named Napo Sanchez. Anybody, does that sound familiar to anybody? And on Saturdays, they would empty those parking meters. And he said it was very peaceful downtown because Napo knew everybody's grandmother. And if you were rowdy, he would tell your grandmother, and you wouldn't be invited to Sunday supper. And that's a problem. I'm like, I think all of you, we came here from someplace else. We're Anglos, as is everybody sitting here, I believe. Do we have an interesting situation here? I mean, we're not Ferguson, but the bulk of the people who live here are not Anglos. So how does that fit into your idea about how to be a mayor here in this town?
I agree completely that we have had a militarization of police force throughout the country. Our state police academy is nothing more than a military academy up there. We have seen state police officers on television react in ways that were totally inappropriate, but it was because that they've had military training. Instead of being taught to go into a situation, assess it, and stabilize or defuse the situation, most police officers nowadays are taught to go in and take control and immediately apply force if necessary. The change will have to come about in how we select and how we train police officers, and that's not going to occur overnight. With regard to Silver City, however, I will tell you that a lot of the officers are non-Anglo. The department is not overly Anglo in its makeup. And the use of force in Silver City, I think, has been minimal. We have occasional reports from homeless people or others that they feel like they have been adversely, attacked by a police officer. Very rare. My interactions with police officers here in town have been good uniformly. I have a friend who's on the force, and he's a very good guy. So, yes, there's a huge problem. I think our state police in this state are the biggest problem. But here in town, I think we're in reasonably good shape at the moment.
I agree with Mark that the state police department really needs to somehow be changed. I'm familiar with the training techniques that they use up there, and it is more of a reactionary response. It's move in quick, take care of the situation, and you're done. I taught forensic science for probably 20 years up at the university, and in doing so, worked closely with the police academy up there. And I saw it change quite a bit over that 20-year period. When I first started teaching forensic science, those police cadets would come to my class at night with their guns on. And I remember one night they were having fast draw contests from one end of the hall to the other. There, at some point, that created such an uproar that our police academy program was completely revamped, where potential police cadets were given psychological tests, and to make sure that, first of all, they could react in a way that was appropriate, and also teach them how to just behave in public and the kind of face that they presented to the public. There was a time in Silver City when our police department had some serious issues. we got a mayor by the name of Fortenberry. And he probably did more than any other mayor has ever done to straighten out our police force. And it took a lot of resignations and things like that. But it has changed for the better over the years. I was speaking with a tourist downtown a while back. I like to just visit and ask them how things are going in Silver City. Are they enjoying their stay, and what could we do better, and things like that. And this one particular person told me, I was speeding the other day and I got pulled over by a cop. And I was totally surprised when he said, I'm just going to give you a warning, but you need to drive a little slower. And I know that administration in the city is now working on projects of how to interact better with the public. And they have changed drastically in terms of the number of tickets they give, the number of warnings they give. So I think they're trying to do a better job, and I think they are.
So I'm going to really address the question about what you had asked, Martha, about the fact that we have majority Hispanic in town. Actually, the county is actually majority Hispanic. And talk a little bit about our police department. So I'm going to kind of go backwards, and I'm going to first say that our police department recently presented what had happened over the past year of contact that they'd had with citizens. And of the over 600 types of contact that they had, where they visited with a citizen or a tourist or someone, even when they went on a call, over 50% of those were positive, or there was no issue. So we're not, I think what it made all of us realize at the council is we're not one step away from a Ferguson, thankfully. We're not that close to having something happen, because our officers, we have really done a concerted effort in the last year and a half to really get them to learn how to communicate with each other, because we all know that most of them are younger and they're all attached to their cell phones. I always think it's funny when you see two officers standing each other and you know that they're texting each other. So we're trying to teach them how to communicate with each other and to better communicate with all of you, and even when they come in contact with you. So they'll be going through some training on that, on communication skills. And I think that we're already seeing some of the things that I didn't used to see before when I first came here, which is I can wave and they'll wave back, or they'll stop and roll down the window and say, how are you doing? How's it going? And it's not that they necessarily recognize me. It's just that, I'm a waver. I wave at people. And I can tell you that as well, with tourists that come into the museum, we've always seemed to get really positive comments on the police department, whether it's on campus or whether it is out in the community. But I would tell you that what we've done over the years, and one of the things I would continue to do, is when in 2010, when we faced having to redistrict, I was a staunch supporter of the civil rights and the Voting Act, and making sure that we did not subsume the Hispanic vote. Because that is actually what was going to happen with one larger than normal Anglo, because of the way people are spread around Silver City. And there wouldn't be that's District 2, and there would no longer have been District 3, which is the large Hispanic one, so that sort of offsets. District 1 and 4 are primarily Hispanic. And I have to say that I have a real affinity with Hispanic folks, because many people don't know this, I grew up in South America. After we left, my father worked for a particular company that I won't mention here. And we moved from Missouri to Caracas, Venezuela. I do speak Spanish fluently. I've worked in Peru as an archaeologist. And I have half siblings that are Latino. So to me, it's very intimate. It's part of who I am. It's part of my culture. And so when I came here back in 1981 to be a student out in the field school at Nan Ranch, I felt that this was my home. I felt welcomed. Everyone I talked to, it didn't matter who they were. I have a tendency not to see folks as Hispanic or Anglo because I know we have different, we've been brought up differently. Many people, like I said, didn't know that about me. So I think that this is a welcoming community. I think it continues to be. I think if we all work together, we'll continue to be. If we can work with our officers like we have been, so that it's not a knee-jerk reaction. They're starting not to do that. They're starting to really communicate, to really calm down people that are in distress, to really help folks that are in distress. And I have seen over the past 7 years a significant change, and it is because we have a really diverse community and people really do care about each other. It doesn't matter if you've lived here for generations. It's that you love Silver City just as much as the rest of us do. So, thank you.
Well, thank you all. I know that people here have brought some questions, which I didn't really expect, and we have 5 minutes. So I want to ask you a question.
This group cannot answer one question in 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, here's one. You know, people come in and to the Bernie Center and they say, "Oh, who should we vote for mayor?" And of course, we'd be pleased to suggest someone who endorsed Bernie. We asked the councilor candidates, and one of them said, "Oh, sure, I'm going to vote for him," and one of them said, "I don't think it's prudent to do that." So, would any of you, I know that partisan politics doesn't seem to be, I don't know what party you all belong to, that doesn't seem to be part of the...
You better give us 30-second answers or this will never get done.
Yeah.
I am not a member of either political party. I don't particularly like politics. If this was a Democrat or Republican job that I was running for, I wouldn't be running for it. I have no future ambitions for politics. I tend to vote Democrat. I have voted for Diane Hamilton, however, as our representative for years because I know her and I know that she's a good person. So I take each candidate on their own pluses and minuses. To be absolutely honest with you, I probably will not be voting for Bernie. He's a wonderful man. He has wonderful ideas, but I don't believe he could get them through Congress.
I want to respond. To get them through Congress, we've got to change Congress also.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what the revolution is about.
I think one of the things that Bernie Sanders has done is make people realize that we've had enough of the status quo. When you look at Washington politics, it's almost embarrassing to think that these people are going to represent our country. When you hear people stand up and insult women, insult other people, and you know, and come up with the same old platform year after year after year, and nothing ever changes. So I think it's really refreshing to have someone who has some new ideas. And when Bernie first started out, the word that scared the daylights out of me was socialism. But as I've come to study some of his platform, not some of it, all of his platform, I've come to realize that that's not exactly the case. He's a very straightforward and honest man. He speaks his piece, and there's nothing that he wants to do that I can hardly disagree with. You know, who can disagree with health care for people? For affordable education? That's another misnomer, because those that want to discredit him somehow use a phrase of free education for everybody. But from the stuff that I've read about him, he talks more about affordable education for everybody. So I'm a Bernie Sanders fan. I don't know who I'm going to vote for yet, but more than likely I will, because none of these other people are just suited to run our country.
Well, I have to say thanks for asking the question. You know, I thought that might come up, and I have to say that, you know, I'm a Democrat. I don't always vote party line, but I've been a Democrat since 1976. I turned 18. I was graduating from high school, sorry. I remember that I went to register to vote. My mother took me, and she stood over my shoulder and she said, "You live in my house. If you want to continue to live in my house, you must register to be a Republican." Okay, but wait a minute, that's not all. I did. Then I went to college. The minute I got there, I registered as a Democrat. I didn't tell her. There's only several of us in our family. They think higher education has abused our minds. I think that it's made us smarter. But I would tell you that I was thrilled at that time to be able to vote in my first presidential election. 40 years later, I'm going to be just as thrilled. I have to admit that I have not done all of the research that I want to do on both Democrat candidates. I can certainly tell you there is no way in God's green earth that I would ever put a vote in for anybody on the Republican side. I am distraught that they would even think that they could tell the current president, who was voted in by all of us, that he should not be able to select the next Supreme Court justice. Excuse me, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that, and y'all are waving it around. So I'm a little disturbed by that, more than a little, very disturbed by that. But I would tell you that I haven't done all my research yet, and I'm really pleased that I live in a state like I did in California a long time ago, that I have ample opportunity and time to really thoroughly do my research and make a decision. But you bet, whoever the Democratic nominee is, I am right there behind him, or her, but him. Okay, so I love Bernie. I think that he's got great ideas. I'm so glad he challenges the establishment to think outside the box and to really look at those of us that are the 99%. So, thank you.
Thank you all, and on March the 2nd, we'll know who the new mayor is.
You might know March 1st.
Okay.
I think last year it was about 7:45 because of the new electronic tabling and stuff. So you never know, but it should be sometime on March 1st.
I might mention that the town clerk is estimating that there will only be a 9% turnout of voters.
We need people to vote.
We need people to vote.
As I said today, what's really critical about this is that this is the beginning of an election year that's going to matter. And so begin with your right to vote. I lived in countries where you don't have the right to vote. And people try to make sure that you don't vote, or that you don't even know who the candidate is until the day before, and voila, they're elected. So I'm telling you, anything that we can do here to get people to understand this is not something to cast away. You have a right to vote. Please exercise it if you live in a municipality in the state of Mexico.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Yay!